Thank you. If that was you, I appreciate it.
Lutz gave it to me. I just made sure you got it.
My plan is not to read out the entire Board of Ed.
Are you going to introduce the Board of Ed? Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to do the entire membership, but I guess I will.
Do you want me to Google who they are?
No, I got it.
Okay, good.
All right.
Oh, go Friars. They've been playing well.
Yes.
Really?
15 in the country.
I know.
So I'm taking my son up, who's going there, on the 12th to watch a game and do a early decision kids thing. So
Who are they playing?
So playing Bryant in lacrosse and either St. John's, because they just played St. John's, or I think Georgetown in basketball. I should know.
Georgetown?
So
They'll beat them, don't worry.
So
That hasn't been too good.
So
I went all the way to Storrs, Connecticut for a UConn-Georgetown game, and it was the most...
DePaul. They played DePaul.
Georgetown's at the point where they're asking Will to come back and play.
Totally. Totally. And by the way, it probably pays more. Now that the name image
Oh, yeah,
likeness
that's
thing.
right. Definitely more than the Sun.
Well, my dad played
Although
for
you have
Georgetown
ancillary
Oh,
income.
yeah, you never told me that.
with Tagliabue.
Oh, I mean,
Back
you
in,
did know that.
yes,
That's cool.
59 to 62.
That's really cool.
Basketball.
Your dad played basketball at Georgetown? That is...
Unfortunately, it skips a generation. The athletic.
You're tall.
Yeah. First I know he's something.
Yeah.
It turns out it was Tom.
So I know
Hey,
we're doing
the
2
one-
minutes. I might be 3 minutes only because my first minute was probably going to be intros.
Fine. As I'm writing my thing out, I might be too.
All right.
I'm going to play a 7-minute video.
You were trying to.
On. Where is our staffers? I want to make sure we're ready to go. She's supposed to give me a heads up.
Yep. Did you respond? Scum of the earth. God, you're not that bad.
So, imagine just going to town. I feel like comfortable saying it.
You ever see that John Mulvaney skit on New in Town?
Yeah.
Whenever someone says that, I say, I'm new in town. I'm homeless. He's like, that's not the order I would have gone in.
By the way, the signal.
Subtle. Oh, wait. Really? You're not in control. I thought you were. Is that guy having, he knows the rules of the
So who's timing then?
The guy in the back.
But he's got a timer, so he should know.
I see. Tom, he's got a timer back there, is that?
Tom, I guess you will announce that new Canaan in-person speakers speak first, right? And make sure when they come down that they say what town they're from.
Good evening, everybody. We have a request. If you are logged on to NCPS Guest 1, just a guest, if you could log off. We're having a hard time with bandwidth and having this live streamed. So if you're on NCPS Guest, please log off. And we should be started momentarily. Public announcement. We have to follow these up in Hartford as well, in the Capitol only. But we're required to have masks on when we're not talking. When you come up and talk, you obviously can take your mask off. But I am obligated to make that announcement. I would ask that everybody put on their masks. It's state law currently, unfortunately, but that's why we're here. It's not. It's an executive order. I agree. It's an executive order. Sorry. Yep. I can take it. Look, I have voted. Hold on. Hold on. Hey, hold on, Paul. Hold on. Listen to me. This is going to end very quickly, okay? I have voted against the executive order extensions every time since March of 2020. Whoa. But I want everybody right now to take a look to your right and to your left. Okay? We are all friends and neighbors, okay? And we live in the best town in the state, if not the country. Let's show it, okay? At the end of the day, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with the chants and the cheers and our freedoms. I agree. However, I am a rule follower, and this event, this forum, this bipartisan event will be shut down if we can't control ourselves. I am going to wear this darn thing, which I hate to wear, okay? But I'm going to wear it because that's the executive order that we're currently under, that hopefully will end. But we need to be respectful, okay? We can disagree without being disagreeable. Let's show who we are. We are New Canaan, NC Pride. I'd say I coached football for the last 15 years. And so we know where he stands. Okay? But now he's not going to be here. I want all of you to be here. Okay? I want to have a fruitful discussion. So let's all relax, take a deep breath, and realize we're here for the greater good, and I want to hear from all of you. We want to hear from all of you. So let's be respectful. We can disagree without being disagreeable. How we doing? All right. So that was fun. My name is Tom O'Day, state rep from the 125th District. I've represented New Canaan for the last 10 years. It's been the most enjoyable job, the most frustrating job, and the least paying job I've ever had. I just want to thank the Board of Ed. We've got Katrina Parkhill, Brendan Hayes, Hugo Alves, Dan Bennett, Phil Hogan, Bob Naughton, Penny Ration, Erica Swindell, and Julie Toll. I attended each one of the Board of Ed meetings, the last two in person as well. And so about 2 weeks ago when I reached out, when Katrina and I talked, we decided to have a forum. Katrina said, though, I want to have it bipartisan. I reached out to Lucy, Will, and Ryan, and we all agreed to this bipartisan forum to hear from you. This is not a debate. This is not where I'm going to take my gloves off and we're going to start fighting up here to show how red meat into it we are. This is an opportunity for us, the legislators, to hear from you. As I said at the first Board of Ed meeting, there was a lot of angry people, and I understand the anger. I've had 3 kids go through the public school system, South, Saxe, and I've got a senior at the high school, all right? And if my kids were going through it in the elementary school, I'd be very upset as well. But we have to listen to each other respectfully. And so I want to thank Katrina for allowing us to set up this forum and the rest of the Board of Ed. I want to thank all of you for coming. That's what I wanted to say about the introductory remarks. We're going to have 2 minutes each, starting now, to kind of give our intro. We're going to have everybody come up for 2 minutes and speak. Please, please respect the fact that we've got a lot of people here who want to talk. We're going to take New Canaan residents first. Then we've got a couple of residents that want to play a 3-minute video. And then we're going to take out-of-town residents, or residents from out of town that if they want to talk. And we're going to try and, if we have time, have people from the streams have a chance to have a say. This is not a Q&A, at least at this point in time. Afterwards, I'm going to stick around. I'm sure my colleagues are going to stick around and answer any questions you want. But at the end, so we're going to start off, we're going to go myself, then Lucy, then Ryan, then Will for the first 2 minutes. And then at the end, after everybody's gone at 8:24, we're going to go Will, then Ryan, then Lucy, then I for closing remarks. And again, I will stick around. Now, for my first 2 minutes, I am rabidly opposed to the mask mandate, okay? And I'd ask that you wait until speakers and us are finished with our talk. Cheering or booing in the middle of a talk is rude and impolite, and I'd ask that you not engage in that kind of conduct. So I am rabidly opposed to the mandate. I voted against the executive orders ever since March of 2020. I've got my cloth mask that I've wore up at the Capitol. I've got the surgical mask that I've worn around when I forgot the other masks, and I've got my N95. As far as I'm concerned, the CDC has now confirmed this is useless. It's a facial decoration, as CNN medical advisor Dr. Lena Wen said, facial decoration. So I am against mandating our children wearing masks in schools under any circumstances. I want parental choice. But that being said, I heard eloquently from a student who had cystic fibrosis that she feels comfortable in masks. She's been wearing a mask since before the COVID. My response to her respectfully is, God bless you. She was a wonderful speaker, but she can continue to wear a mask voluntarily. That's up to her. There are annual deaths due to COVID for children are less than drowning, motor vehicle accidents, homicide, cancer, cardiovascular disease, the flu, pneumonia, and suffocation for kids under the age of 14. So wearing a mask, we all admit, is detrimental to kids, mentally, physically, emotionally. And so the question I have for those of you, for me personally, as I finish up here in my intro, please articulate to me why you believe either these useless masks should be worn by my child or some other N95 mask should be worn, and why, what studies that you have. I don't want to debate, I just want to hear your input as to why I'm wrong. And believe me, my wife tells me I'm wrong all the time. So if you have your opinion, I respect it 100%. Please get me the data in the studies and the articles that you have to support that information as to why my child has to wear a mask. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight, and thank you to my fellow legislators for agreeing to do this forum. I think it's so important that we hear what's important to everybody here. I wanted to reiterate my gratitude towards this district, especially with Dr. Lutzy at the helm. He's done an amazing job for the last 2 years guiding us through this COVID operating strategy that we have. I wanted to thank the teachers, the administrators, and the staff that have given 1,000% to ensure that our students or be able to stay in the classroom, which I hope everyone in this room agrees is the #1 goal. I empathize, thank you, but let's carry on. I empathize with everyone. I've heard from people on both sides of this issue. This pandemic is hard on everyone. You hear the term COVID off-ramp very frequently these days. I personally don't like this term, but I do feel it has some merit. Just like when you exit Merritt Parkway, you don't go from 60 or 55 to 0 straight away. You slow down. And I believe that we need to be doing that in the same scenario as we update our school guidance. I support local control, provided that there are parameters and metrics and guidelines in place to monitor the virus so that we can respond quickly and combat any upticks. The safety and the well-being of our children and the staff is ultimately the biggest concern that I take very seriously. What parameters should be in place? Well, this is where I defer to the experts. But I do hope it focuses on community vaccination rates, hospitalizations, and not exclusively on positivity numbers. These guidelines would give local districts the opportunity to make the decisions that work for them, along with the other mitigation strategies that they have in place that they're able to layer. We heard on Monday from a high schooler at the special BOE meeting whose testimony about her experience with living with cystic fibrosis touched all of us. I hear from other parents speaking to their concerns about masks coming off, and they're concerned about them coming off too quickly. There's also real worry that mask choice and students who still want to or still need to wear masks may feel uncomfortable, or in some cases may even feel harassed from other students. So I do think that we need to be really methodical and careful about the rollout of a new mask choice option. Our ultimate goal is for the schools to remain open and give our students the best learning opportunity that they can have. I'm confident that NCPS can get this right with Dr. Lutzy leading the way. Thank you for coming.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Fazio. I represent Greenwich, Stamford, and New Canaan in the state Senate, and I'm very proud to do so. I wanted to thank so many people for coming here tonight to make their voice heard. We've heard from a lot of voices over the past several weeks in particular about how these rules and how the executive powers in our state have affected families and children most of all. We all know how difficult this pandemic has been over the last 2 years in many different ways. In our area, in our community, we have seen people operate with grace and charity and sacrificing in order to help one another, and that's admirable, and that's truly the core and the character of the people here in our community in New Canaan and the surrounding towns. People who have sacrificed especially in order to supposedly help and support the health of others have been school children, even though the school children have a very low risk of severe infection from COVID. As Tom said, the CDC statistics are very clear that the risks of mortality and severe infection from the flu, suicide, homicide, drowning, traffic fatalities are all much higher for minors than they are from COVID. At the same time, 2 years into the pandemic, we now have tools in order to protect one another from COVID, especially protect ourselves from COVID, especially medical interventions like the vaccines and therapeutics. But these are available to anyone. These are available to anyone, and they can choose to use them on their own in order to protect themselves. But 2 years into the pandemic, we have to make a decision about looking out for the well-being of our kids in schools. We see the statistics, we hear the stories. Academic achievement is down. Depression and anxiety and self-harm is up. Other problems that kids are facing are through the roof like we've rarely seen before. So we have to, 2 years into the pandemic, ask ourselves if this is an acceptable paradigm for the months and years to come. I don't think it is. I think it's clear that it's time for the executive powers to end, for the state legislature to reassume its prerogatives as the lawmaking body in our state, and for these decisions to be devolved to the localities, or better yet, families themselves, who are best able and equipped to decide how to serve the interests of their children than anyone else. I'm here to listen tonight. I want to hear from people who agree with me. I want to hear from people who disagree with me. Perhaps I want to hear more from people who disagree with me. And I appreciate the thoughtfulness that's going to go into every single comment here tonight. And I'll give my take, my further take at the end as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you all so much for being here. My name is Will Haskell. I see some familiar faces in the audience and some who I don't know yet. I have the pleasure of representing New Canaan, as well as Westport, Wilton, and Weston, Ridgefield and Reading, and Bethel in the state Senate. Let me just start with the obvious statement that this has been a terrible time. We know that we all just want normalcy in our lives at this point. And we crossed a really tragic threshold yesterday with 10,000 lives in Connecticut lost due to COVID. I'm pretty proud of how Connecticut's responded, how New Canaan has responded. I give the governor actually a lot of credit for keeping kids in school. And actually, Connecticut's been held up as a national model of doing just that. I think that with conditions continuing to trend in the right direction, we should give districts more flexibility about issues like masks in schools. We probably no longer need a one-size-fits-all approach for 169 towns that are very different in terms of teacher absence rate, in terms of vaccination rate, in terms of community transmission. You know, in some schools, the costs are beginning to outweigh the benefits. And believe me, my favorite person in this world is my 5-year-old niece, and I so desperately want her to be able to see her teacher smile. But I guess what I want out of tonight, I want to listen to all of you. I want to learn from all of you, those who agree and those who disagree, as Ryan said. And I want us not to shy away from nuance. Let's not conflate, for example, the mask order, which the state could and should amend in the legislature, with an emergency declaration, for example, that helps to provide a roof over the head of people who are homeless and helps to feed those who are hungry. Let's perhaps shy away from rhetoric like masks do work or don't work, and recognize that maybe it's a little bit of both. Maybe it's about costs and benefits. Let's make sure that, I like what Representative Dathan said, let's make sure that the Department of Public Health, as we move towards more local control, gives administrators like Dr. Lutzy the tools that they need to evaluate, the rubric that they should be looking at in making those decisions. It'll be the district's decision, but let's make sure that our public health department has their back by providing them with the information that they need. And let's not forget that kids aren't the only ones in school. There are teachers, some of whom are immunocompromised. So let's make sure that districts, and by the way, I agree, Katrina, Dr. Lutzy, thank you for hosting us tonight. Thank you for the incredible work you've done. Let's make sure that we gave districts not just the information and the tools, but also maybe the time they need to plan for this decision, to perhaps, if they decide it's right for this community, allow some students or all students to take off their masks. Let's let them plan for staff members who might need accommodations because of their underlying health conditions. Let's dig into those details tonight and not be afraid of nuance. As Tom said, we're neighbors, we're friends. Let's prove that civil discourse is still possible, maybe, in this room tonight. I certainly still believe that it is. Thank you all for being here. Looking forward to hearing from you.
All right, guys, keep it respectful. We can disagree without being disagreeable. All right, so, yes, ma'am, why don't you come up, please? Again, anybody who wants to speak, please raise your hand, and we'll take you in order as best I can.
Thank you. Hello, is this on?
And please give your name and town.
Yes. Hello, my name is Abby Duncan, and I've lived in New Canaan most of my life, as has my husband. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of our 4 children, ages 4 to 13, regarding your mask mandates and implore you to fight for local control. These mandates are seeping into our children's psyches in a way that no one can begin to fully comprehend. I have often said that the true measure of this pandemic will be the toll that this will take on mental health. Children are particularly vulnerable These mandates are affecting their most formative developmental years, shaping their perception of the world, the way they interact with it, and their place in it. Let me give you a few personal examples. I was in a store in town with my 4-year-old daughter. She pleaded to me with her eyes, whispering, "Mama, please, Mama, can I pull my mask down to breathe? I'm far away from everyone, and I promise I won't hurt anyone." How about my 2nd grader, who hides in the corner during silent reading to sneak fresh air and take his own mask break? Or my older boys who navigate middle school with new faceless friends. Today, one of my middle schoolers and I were discussing a magazine article he recently read. The article said that a person cannot breathe carbon dioxide for more than 30 minutes before becoming very ill or dying. As if a light bulb went off in his head, he said to me, "Mom, if that were true, why would they force me to wear a mask and breathe my own carbon dioxide for 7 hours a day in school? What are we doing to our children?" The mask mandate itself in school has proved inconsequential according to all credible studies I've seen. On top of that, the CDC has stated that masks that our children are wearing are ineffective. More importantly, now that the virus has reached endemic status, let's be an honest acknowledgement of its risk is needed. Look around this country and at the world who are loosening these mandates. Why are we allowing Lamont to keep us in a state of emergency? It's time to give our children back their childhood. Please go to Hartford and fight for local control and end these mandates. Thank you.
All right, ma'am. So thank you very much for keeping it just about 2 minutes. Just try and keep it just under 2 minutes. And I've got somebody here keeping time, so please respect everybody so that everybody gets a chance to talk. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Inessa Moroz from New Canaan. I was a registered Democrat before this pandemic. I have a PhD in math and was formerly a math professor at Caltech. I've been following and analyzing the math studies myself. I still hear a few people saying, "Masks have kept us in school," a statement with no scientific validity. It's been 2 years. Millions of dollars have been spent, countless studies investigating the effect of mask mandates on COVID spread, and still not a single one proving they're effective in schools. Universal masking was just another mitigation tactic we tried with high hopes, among many, and the data for its support never materialized. Today, I want to show those that are still in fear of parental mask choice what the data in some of these studies looks like. I know trust in the expert class has been lost, and I want those that are still afraid to be able to take a small step tonight towards truly understanding the science and breaking down some of that unjustified fear. Thank you. Let's look at a study from Spain, including over 1 million students. Many epidemiologists now refer to the study as sobering. This graph shows the R value, a measure of how fast the virus spreads by age. Spain mandated masks at a specific age. If masks had some really big effect, we should see a drop in the graph where kids start to wear them. If masks work, the spread would drop at the age masking starts. But as you can see, there is only a slow upward trend with no steps down. The younger kids just infect fewer people, and the older infect more. From looking at the graph, it is impossible to guess which age children are wearing masks and which are not. This means masks were not associated with slowing the spread. Masks were actually required at age 6. Again, there are countless studies with this exact same stories. As Dr. Vinay Prasad, a highly reputable epidemiologist, says, pre-COVID, there were well-accepted evidentiary standards for what you need to prove to impose a massive intervention like masking kids for years. When hit with a pandemic, you surely get leeway, 3, 6 months, but when you get to 2 years, you need data or you need to pack it away. Thank you.
Thank you. Because you were interrupted, we let you go a little longer. Try and please keep it at 2 minutes. Thank you very much. And if we have more time, you can come back. Thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Jen Potter. We moved to New Canaan from New York in August. When COVID hit, our school offered 20 minutes of virtual learning 3 days a week. We spent half of last year on Zoom. My 9-year-old's learning differences were ignored, and my 6-year-old had 4 substitute teachers for her kindergarten year. There was no socialization, there was no after-school programs, and there were no athletics. It was a brutal year for us. We chose New Canaan because beyond the academic rigor, Dr. Letzi was a clear leader who moved mountains to provide in-person education consistency for New Canaan students while never sacrificing safe environments. Our kids are thriving now at East School. This is an amazing school system led by extraordinary teachers and administrators, and I applaud them. And I am so grateful for Dr. Letzi. I trust him with the safety of my kids because he has acted in a measured way from the beginning of this nightmare. I don't want my kids to be wearing masks. We are all together on that point. But we cannot let our exhaustion and anger and weariness make poor choices for us. Lifting the mask mandate on the 15th is not a measured response. It ignores the fact that we are still very much in cold and flu season. It ignores the very likely spike in cases after so many travel for February break. And it ignores the fact that educators will need time to prepare for talking through the division and the potential bullying that will inevitably come from some students wearing masks and some not. I strongly urge you to consider a 30 to 60-day extension for the mask mandate so that these points can be accounted for. And I'll end by saying that the value placed in this community is also one of the reasons that brought my family here. We are all torn apart by the strain of this pandemic and its impact on our children. A healthy community holds genuine mutual respect for all of its members, regardless of differences. A 30 to 60-day extension of the mandate is a compromise that will ensure the health and integrity of this community. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Listen, folks, we've got a lot of comments to get through tonight, but you can boo at us. Don't boo at each other. I don't care how strongly you disagree with somebody. I see a lot of kids in the audience tonight, and again, we signed up for this. Boo at us all you want. Demonstrate to the kids in the audience tonight that we can still treat one another, the attendees tonight, respectfully. So please, please, do not boo at each other.
James Passion, New Canaan, and I have a much different message than the last speaker. So my message is a simple one. We need to go a step beyond local control and establish parental choice. Local control will hand decision-making to boards of education and superintendents across the state. We've seen across the state and country how disconnected many authorities are from the constituents they represent. A superintendent or BOE should not dictate the physical and mental health of any child with mandated masks. They should not be supplanting the roles of parents in instilling our values and beliefs. The most important ingredient in the success of our school system can be seen in the turnout tonight. It's thoughtful, educated parents deeply invested in their kids' well-being. If a union, superintendent, or government that we, the parents, pay for, wants to override the decision-making of every parent who knows their children best and cares for them the most, shame on them. Their job is to educate or protect individual rights, not subvert these rights based on unfounded and excessive fear. It has become clear that in this state and country, we need a parental bill of rights that supersedes government control. That's something to fight for.
Chris Madden, lived here for 10 years. That's quite an act to follow. There's so much to address here, but I do want to address one thing, this absolute nonsense about breathing in carbon dioxide. I hope you guys are educated enough to know that that has absolutely no basis in science or common sense. For instance, if you were going to go in for heart surgery, a complicated procedure where a surgeon has to be absolutely acute and on his or her game for the entirety of the procedure, along with the anesthesiologist and the nurses, etc., I think you want them masked. I think they're going to wear one of these, or maybe two. If they can do it, and they can maintain that mental acuity for 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 hours of a surgery, you have to know that this nonsense about carbon dioxide is just that. There's no foundation in science for that. And that's one of the problems is people can come up here and say, well, study after study say, and they never have to show you those studies. Study after study say, or I've heard, or people are saying. Well, you can just make up whatever you want when you put that qualifier in front of it. So here's the thing. In a community, sometimes every individual member of the community has to make a small sacrifice for the benefit of that larger community. So maybe you have immunocompromised teachers. You know, also maybe kids have immunocompromised family members that they live with, multi-generational households, etc. It used to be, ask not what your country can do for you. Oh, okay, that's enough. Here's the other thing. When you talk about bullying, there's bullying coming from one side. One. And you know that it will continue.
All right, sir, please. Can we hold off? Go ahead, sir. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Andrea. I live in New Canaan. Andrea Ospov. I'm a neuroscientist and applied mathematician, PhD from Yale. I like to look at numbers. Happens to the best of us. So I looked at the official Connecticut data set. Deaths from COVID by town, 11 towns, from Greenwich all the way up to Brookfield, starting from October the 1st. We now stand about 15 deaths per 100,000 people. All the smaller towns actually below 10. Please, everybody, check myself. Now, for example, 4 winters ago, the average US death toll from flu would stand at 20, by some estimates as high as 28. So I believe the time has come to start treating COVID as we treat any other respiratory viral seasonal disease. As of masks, back in 2020, when they were introduced, people would basically try anything because, you know, desperate times, desperate measures. It's been 2 years. I've looked at many studies. Unfortunately, I have not seen any, unfortunately, conclusive evidence that masks at schools help in any measurable sense, in any scientific sense. I do deeply respect the just-in-case opinion. I do respect the it's not worth it opinion. That's why I believe that masks at schools should be made entirely optional. And to conclude, here in New Canaan, we have an outstanding superintendent, Dr. Latze. We have a devoted board of education, first-rate teachers, and a great community of parents and kids. I believe that together we can make it back to normal, and that actually we're already making this step in the right direction. So please, dear representative, please do not extend the emergency order. Please do not make any COVID-related mandates permanent, God forbid. And please let us go back to normal. Please do not hold us back. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dr. Philip Faris. I'm a resident of New Canaan. Since the pandemic began until the end of 2021, I was the lead epidemiological modeler at one of the world's largest hedge funds. My responsibilities included interviewing other experts, keeping up with academic publications, forecasting the pandemic trajectory, and also discussing potential implications with investors. So in that capacity, I've read literally hundreds of peer-reviewed papers on immunology, epidemiology, pathology, treatment, prevention measures, and public health of SARS-CoV-2 and COVID, and all of the variants, of course. I'd like to share with you a brief synthesis of some of the things that I've learned in that capacity. So first, it's important to remember that SARS is a respiratory disease. It is spread by droplets primarily, and those droplets can be cleaned out of the air by excellent outdoor air like we've been using in New Canaan and other ventilation measures, and also prevented from entering the air in the first place by masking. All of that is supported by literally dozens of scientific papers, both from first principles as well as observational studies in the United States and in other countries. It is really, at this point, beyond a reasonable doubt from a scientific perspective. It's clear that vaccination does help prevent severe outcomes, but it does not prevent what we call sterilizing immunity. So people do get infected, they're unaware of the fact that they're infected, and they transmit to other people. And that's really where the crux of the public health issue arises. If an adult is to get it, many, many times now, you do not know that you are actually infected, and you will go on and infect on average 2 to 9 other people. And those people may or may not be masked or may not be protected through vaccination. The only peer-reviewed papers so far that we have showing the adverse impact of mask wearing shows that children ages 3 to 5 have some more difficulty in recognizing emotions. There is no other peer-reviewed paper showing an adverse effect of masks. There are many peer-reviewed papers showing the adverse impact to students about the pandemic. Those include mental health complications, delayed emotional, social, and cognitive development, impaired academic performance. The best way to overcome those challenges and help our students do better is to end this as quickly as possible. And the best way to do that is to keep the mask mandates in place until we have stopped the spread enough that we can all return to normal. No one wants that more quickly than I do. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Daniel Parker. I'm a resident of New Canaan. Our family moved here from New York City in the middle of the pandemic, and it has been a great experience. And I am asked many times why we moved to the suburbs after 15 years, and the answer is always not COVID. COVID did not drive us out. It was the schools and the option of the wonderful schools of New Canaan. And so I am grateful to all of the leadership, all of the teachers, the principals, and everybody that kept the schools open, because that made us different than other colleagues who a year ago were facing a lot of school shutdowns. Tonight I come here to show my support for choice, the choice to wear a mask or not. In 2020, we were in the middle of a pandemic, and I don't think we consider this moment now in 2022 the middle of the pandemic. I think we are on the tail end of the pandemic, and I think that I support a measured approach, but I support a measured approach that very much goes towards normalcy, towards removing these masks, because for me, I like to see my kids, my daughter's thriving in a basketball program, but it hurts to watch her have to wear a mask as she runs up and down the court. I think about my other daughter who, doesn't speak often with a loud voice, and she has to talk in her classroom to her teachers with that voice. I think of my son who isn't yet in school, but his vocabulary isn't developing quite as fast. And I think if he was in school, he would need to be able to see the lip movements of his teachers. All of these benefits the kids get, I think, come from being able to see people's faces. So I am all for having the choice, because I know what's best for my kids. And if I choose to send my kids to school without a mask, that's my choice. The other night, and this is the last thing I want to say, the young woman who spoke up about her cystic fibrosis, I think we all sort of paused in that moment and said, well, I would want to do anything to harm her. And she made a point, and she said something that a friend made a point to me, and I'll repeat it, that she actually sort of allowed us to see that she, with her cystic fibrosis, was able to live in a world without masks pre-COVID. She said she had been wearing masks for 6 years, and that kept her safe. She was able to have the choice to wear a mask in that moment in a world that didn't wear masks. So in many ways, I think that we can be safe by giving people choice. If people want to send their kids to school with a mask or without, it's up to them. But it comes down to the families. Thank you very much, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Just please try and keep it to under 2 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Karis Homestead. I'm a proud father of 4 children in the New Canaan public school system and a proud New Canaanite. First, I want to thank Senator Fazio and Representative O'Day for following the science in your recent op-ed about ending the authoritarian mask mandates. I am a lover of liberty and the American creed. I am here tonight to express wide-held community anger that too many of our elected state officials have betrayed our children and the American creed. To begin with, I'm going to offer a quick history lesson. I'm going to give you 3 quotes. 1, "Give me liberty or give me death," spoken by Patrick Henry in 1775. 2, "We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness," and that includes our children's happiness. And 3, from Theodore Roosevelt, "Thank God for the iron in the blood of our fathers who upheld the wisdom of Lincoln. We of this generation do not have to face a task such as that our fathers faced," meaning the Civil War, "but we have our tasks, and woe to us if we fail to perform them." Rational states in our union, 36 and counting, do not have mask mandates for their children in school. Why are our elected officials depriving our children in the state of Connecticut of the liberty to learn and develop when their peers across the nation face no such deprivations. There is no science behind this. It has become political theater. These mask mandates are denying our children their unalienable rights to liberty and their pursuit of happiness. Why would anyone with the iron blood of our fathers flowing in his or her veins grant more authoritarian control to our governor? Our ancestors launched a revolution because of a tiny tax on stamp and tea. And yet what we have granted Governor Lamont for the 7th time would make King George III blush. The evidence is incontrovertible at this point. Our children have statistically zero risk to COVID. The vaccinations are working for everyone, including our teachers. New Canaan is near 100% vaccination. Masks do nothing but stunt educational and social growth. So why persist in granting dictatorial authority? I'm almost done, sorry. Granting, without the consent of the governed, who are all of us here, additional mask authority to the governor is not democracy by the people or of the people, and most certainly it is not democracy for the people or for our children. Repeal the mandate, restore our liberty.
Good evening. My name is Del Shivanoff. I'm here speaking on behalf of my 4 children who reside here with us in New Canaan across all of the 3 schools, middle, high school and elementary. I'd like to thank our representatives here tonight for their service, for their willing to step up and serve in the process of democracy. It is really appreciated. However, as COVID enters its endemic phase, it is past time to use our democratic process to move COVID-related decision-making back to their individual and their families. With that being our goal, I was alarmed and disappointed to read the letter from CAPSS on which our own Dr. Lutzi is an area chair and in which Fran Rabinowitz requests a 6-week extension to the masks in schools policy. Given that, as stated by our Board of Education on the 31st of January, the same date as the letter, our Board of Education supports local control. I would go further. It needs to be parental and individual control. This is at least a very mixed message, or at worst, a betrayal of expectations given at Monday's meeting. I don't feel the need to dictate what others should do regarding mask wearing, but we are at a crossroads regarding masks that boils down to our own personal tolerance to risk. Numerous studies have shown that cloth masks have been deemed ineffective at stopping the spread of Omicron. Couple that with the latest data from the UK that, in a very positive development, shows COVID has now mutated sufficiently that it now mirrors the same risk as presented by the flu as measured by the CFR case fatality rate. This was certainly not the case earlier in the pandemic. Such an accurate comparison with flu has been able to be made due to the high testing rates in the UK. As it stands, the latest case fatality rates in England in the 7 days up to January 26 were now just 0.14%. That's 1 death in 714 cases, having fallen further since hundreds of thousands of reinfections were added to the case data. The infection fatality rate, this number includes all infections, not just positively measured cases, tells a similar picture and is estimated to be around 0.06%. The data was collected from the UK's Symptom Trapper Act that shows that there were more than 9.2 million COVID infections since the start of December 2021 and 10,670 reported deaths. That's giving an infection fatality rate of 0.11% over that time period. Now, with regards to the comparisons to flu, it's a notoriously tricky thing to work out. However, our own CDC has arrived at figures of the IFR for flu, and that is around 0.12%, and that the case fatality rate is 0.2%. So that comes back to our personal tolerance for risk. The aforementioned data may cause some people to reach for the N95 masks now and during future flu seasons. That's okay if that's their choice, but if their choice impinges on mine to say, I choose not to wear one. Now is the time for our elected leaders to stand up and say no to any further executive orders, return the control to their constituents by voting to end executive orders and vote against codifying the wearing of masks into law. I fear that compulsory mask wearing, if it were to be codified into law, we would be left open to the nefarious possibility of the reintroduction of masks at any time the State Board of Education or Department of Health deemed it necessary. And just because we are for mass choice does not mean that we have to behave in a parochial manner. We literally have a world of evidence and data demonstrating that being free to choose to wear or not to wear a mask in school is neither reckless nor liable to result in unmanageable consequences. Indeed, our own hyperlocal COVID stats show that we are well placed to make the choice to switch. Our local... Okay.
Sorry, we're approaching 3 minutes.
Sorry. I appreciate the local leadership we've had this far in Dr. Lutz in the Board of Education. Prove to us that you deserve our trust in continuing to lead as well. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We've got a half hour. We'll stay longer, but we've got a half hour. And so please stick to 2 minutes or we're going to start, people aren't going to be able to speak and we're not going to see the video. So please stick to 2 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Anya Komisarek. I live here in New Canaan, and I have 4 children, ages 8, 6, 5, and 2. I'm extremely grateful for everyone involved, past and present, that has worked so hard at keeping our kids in school. We have been supportive in all efforts to get ahead of this virus over the past 2 years. Children have been nothing short of amazing during all of this. Some with more willingness and ease to wear masks than others, while some struggle with speech delays, anxiety, or sensory issues and feel helpless and hopeless. You don't have to be an expert to see the devastating effects that all of this has had on our children. Don't fail to acknowledge the parent that stands up here heartbroken, asking for choice because their children are suffering. Mask policies are not a one-size-fits-all. There has been a 40% spike in cases despite the fact that they've been in masks this whole time. Cloth masks are not working. However, the CDC says that an N95 will protect the person wearing it. Great, please wear one. When will we realize children cannot bear the brunt of this pandemic? It's not their job to make the world a better place, that's ours. To make a better world for them, if that means I have to scale back on my freedoms so they can thrive, I will. Kids are sitting masked in classrooms for hours a day because we are in a state of emergency. Excuse me for failing to see the emergency. When stadiums are filled, people are going to concerts, plays, weddings, parties, country club events. Restaurants and bars are packed. We are traveling and going on vacations. It's not our children that are spreading the virus. We are, let's be honest. My 2-year-old is in a twos class of only 8. They are not in masks, they have been fine. One of the students will be turning 3 next week. She will now be expected to wear a mask. This baby, who hasn't had to wear a mask since the start of COVID, has all of a sudden become a threat or is in danger of getting it or spreading it. How are you supposed to explain to a 3-year-old that they are the only one in a mask? That's not science, that's cruel. And what about the children that are vaccinated or have natural immunity? My children have a 90-day grace period from quarantining or testing when exposed. They have natural immunity recognized by our schools. Why mask them? Give them a break. Many children are in the same boat. We can come together as a community and figure it out. We've worked with the teachers before. We can do it again. They are the best. There's no denying that. It's time to change the narrative. We are not in a state of emergency. There's no need to extend executive orders. That's ridiculous. What we need is to put forth a plan to phase out these masks in a way that will make everyone feel safe and comfortable and give our children back the childhood that they deserve. Please be our voice. Health should not be politicized. We are only asking for a choice. Thank you for your time.
I'm Doug Kachijan. 2 years into the pandemic, the burden of proof is on those that continue to insist on mask mandates to demonstrate a clear public health benefit. Interventions that disrupt the lives of children warrant the most scrutiny. To date, there exist no high-quality studies that support the public health benefit of masking children in schools or community masking at large, references available upon request. Several European countries prioritized in-person schooling without mask mandates as early as the spring of 2020, without the disastrous effects predicted here. Masking toddlers all day is the new American exceptionalism. The following are the reasons most often cited for continuing mask mandates and my counterpoints to them. 1, parents differ in their risk tolerances for their children. I sincerely respect other parents' autonomy to take whatever precautions they deem appropriate for their own children. In the absence of data that masking poses a definitive public health benefit, however, the state should not be imposing mandates on every child, effectively eliminating parental discretion. 2, children are resilient and can adapt to anything. Sure, there are worse things than wearing a mask all day, but we don't arbitrarily subject kids to those practices simply because they can be endured. This is one of the laziest justifications for continued mask mandates. We need mask mandates because not all children are eligible for vaccination. COVID poses a greater danger to vaccinated adults than unvaccinated children. See the study by Sorg and colleagues out of Germany, where the risk of going to the ICU from COVID for healthy children was 8 per 100,000 before vaccines were available. To be clear, lifting child mask mandates in schools should not be contingent upon mandatory vaccination in light of the low risk to unvaccinated children and the high transmissibility of more recent variants among vaccinated people. 4, cloth masks don't seem to prevent transmission, therefore children in school should be required to wear N95s or other medical-grade personal protective equipment. Quite simply, Masks worn for brief periods by healthcare providers in the presence of immunocompromised patients in a hospital setting are not appropriate for healthy children to wear all day in school. Best case scenario is that N95 masks delay the inevitable reality we must all confront. Our children are going to be exposed to COVID. 5, we need to protect higher risk and immunocompromised children. I agree. Schools should employ whatever focus, protection, and risk mitigation procedures they always have for this population. The focus should be on vulnerable children, not on symbolic gestures that promote busyness and the illusion of control. 6, children might be exposed to COVID in school and pass it on to elderly relatives. Again, there's no compelling evidence that schools pose more of a public health danger than other places where people congregate, or that masking children in schools prevents community transmission. Moreover, elderly people are largely protected from severe illness by the vaccine. We all have older relatives and friends that we care deeply for and wish to keep safe. In closing, scientific legitimacy in our faith and revered institutions are contingent upon how the issues raised here are addressed. The refusal to reverse child mask mandates will undermine institutional credibility without promoting community health or upholding any sacred principles. Thank you.
Hi, Jonathan Breen, New Canaan. Representative Dathan, you mentioned the Merritt Parkway. I don't know if you've ever driven the Merritt Parkway, but you go from like 75 to 0 in about 100 feet. So that's just, and we seem to all be able to do that. 2, you mentioned experts, and I think you just meant to say Governor Lamont. So, because that seems to be your expert in all this. Senator Haskell, you knocked on my door one day when you were running for election. I talked to you. I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent voter. I'm actually a libertarian. I'm not Democrat, Republican. You said you wanted to run for change. You wanted to stand up here and talk and really change something. Now, you're not running for re-election again. So is this how you want to go out? You want to go out like this? Look, I mean, why are you doing this? Here, the question I have for you is why? Why are you putting us against each other? It's not us, it's you guys. You guys are putting us against each other. So why do you feel the need to exert state control over our local school boards? Why do you require children in schools to be masked while you don't require adults in the same exact town when they're the ones who are more at risk at this? If masks are so critical for health and safety, why don't you require all the town people to be masked? Why the different policies in the same town? Do you trust first selectmen and select women to know what's best for the town residents, but you don't trust parents and school administrators to decide what's best for children and students? This policy is completely nonsensical and it's borderline abusive. It needs to end now. You want to talk about data and science and experts. Data, the 7-day average peaked on 1/3 at 12,600. You know what it was on 1/31? 821. That's a 93% reduction. 93% from the peak. What are we waiting for? You know what the probable case is? And this is all from Connecticut website. I'm getting this from the Connecticut website. You go on there. The probable case load for 2-1 is 5. You know what the deaths were on 126 and 127? 0. 2 straight days. We're doing this for 5 cases and 0 deaths? What is this? So here's what I want to say. I have a lot more to say, but I'm just going to say this. Why 60 days? Is it because you want to find a new variant? Yeah.
Look, I appreciate the enthusiasm. Let's try and get through so that everybody can speak. Thank you. John.
Thank you. I'm John Kriz, and I've lived in New Canaan for over 30 years. I am not here as a parent because I am not a parent. So why am I speaking? I'm speaking because the education and welfare of children is an issue in which all citizens should be fully invested. Everyone here has attended school, and most of us have been to college and even graduate school. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And I mean it, I actually do have the t-shirt. So how did we learn? Well, reading books, watching films, attending lectures, writing papers. But that's not the end of it. For most of us, much of what we learned at school came from face-to-face interactions with our peers, faculty, and coaches. Cafeteria lunches, talks in locker rooms and dorm rooms, impromptu chats in halls. These interactions helped us become more self-aware, more socially aware. better able to manage high-stress situations, more cognizant of emotional triggers, and better at building supportive relationships. Educators refer to this as social and emotional learning. These are crucial life skills. So, for success as a student and as a society, people need not just book skills, but social and emotional skills as well. It seems unarguable that masks impair everyone's social and emotional learning. Is that a price worth paying? This is the matter at hand. I'm particularly distressed about children for whom English is a new language and those with disabilities and other challenges who are bearing the brunt of mask wearing. That those in our community with the greatest vulnerabilities are carrying such a heavy load does not strike me as the American way. And I doubt that we can turn back time and make up for these losses. So, what to do? Yes, we're all concerned about physical illness, but we need to think about the whole child as well. How best to balance these concerns? I would suggest that New Canaan's Board of Education and the parents are really best positioned to understand local conditions and make thoughtful, nuanced decisions on what is best for the diverse young people in New Canaan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've got 21 more speakers at least, so please try and stick to 2 minutes. Thank you.
Those who would give up their essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Welcome to 690 days of 15 days to flatten the curve. The truth is self-evident, the emergency is over. For 2 long years, the government has turned our liberties on and off like a light switch. These so-called public health mandates are about anything but health. $50 million in SNAP and FEMA benefits are on the table this month if we extend a state of emergency. Last week, the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents, where Dr. Lutzy sits on the board, asked the governor to extend mask mandates in schools for at least 60 days. Yesterday, union leaders urged the governor to keep mask mandates in schools. In the last year, our state funneled $1.2 billion of COVID relief funds into state pensions. For those of you in the audience, the headline is this: your kids are being muzzled for money. Representative Dathan and Senator Haskell stop gaslighting us about loving our neighbor or how we're all in this together. Stop hiding behind so-called health experts. There are no public health experts. There are people who follow science and people who push narratives. You are the latter. Representative O'Day and Senator Fazio, make bigger waves. Stop telling us our only hope is to vote red in November because we're outnumbered in Hartford. Maybe more Republicans will win when they don't sound just like Democrats but with lower taxes. Spearhead our values like true liberty and true equality. We are the Constitution state, yet our feckless assembly lets our governor stomp on the Constitution as if he is a king. The Capitol is closed to the people. The schools are closed to parents. These institutions belong to the people, yet the people are banned from accessing them. The only acceptable end to all of this is individual and parental choice. Full stop. In a Monmouth poll last week, 70% of Americans and 71% of independents say it's time to move on from COVID. Independents are the largest political cohort in this country and state. You all need their votes. This issue supersedes every single issue you think matters. If you come down on the wrong side of this, if you are milquetoast on this, you will lose bigger than a bug that flies into a Canadian trucker convoy. End it all now, or in November, all of these parents and voters will end your political career.
Thank you. Again, this feckless Republican is asking you to please keep the 2 minutes.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. For almost 2 years, I, like many parents, have handed my children a mask each morning as part of a mitigation strategy to keep them safe, to keep their beloved teachers safe, and to keep our schools open. To many of us, the benefits of universal masks seemed unquestionable, and its drawbacks, we thought, minimal. The masks were uncomfortable to wear for long periods, they fit poorly, but we were willing to do our part. They worked, or so we were told. But there is growing evidence showing that masks, and particularly the cloth ones worn by students, are little more than theater. We're learning about this not from fringe media, but from respected places of high journalism, the New York Times, The Atlantic, where recently 3 public health experts eviscerated the case for school mask mandates. The evidence and studies that we're reading about today have been a wake-up call to many who put trust in public health officials, but those studies are not exactly breaking news. The WHO does not recommend masks for kids under 6. The European equivalent of the CDC recommended against masks for elementary students, yet our CDC, backed by their flawed studies, still recommends that all kids 2 and older be masked. It's time to acknowledge that forcing kids to wear masks for hours each day has little public health benefit and significant downsides, especially for vulnerable kids. Indeed, we don't even know the long-term harm we are doing to our children by keeping them uncomfortably masked while they are trying to learn and build relationships with their peers and with their teachers. The community backlash, including from parents like me who long supported mask wearing, is growing, and it's not going away until the masks are off. Parents should have a choice. For those who feel safer having their kids wear a mask, that choice should be respected. But don't make those of us whose kids hate this, those of us who know the science says it makes no sense, don't make us continue with this charade. Follow the science and basic common sense. End the mask mandate and give control of our children, back to us, their parents. Thank you.
Representatives, put simply, you have failed us, most importantly our children, by continuing to support Governor Lamont's mask mandates and staying silent when an overwhelming majority of the community has implored you to speak up on our behalf. Ms. Dathan, you were present on the New Canaan Advertiser virtual coffee where I, in vivid detail, described the impairment in my son's brain development that occurred as a result of his inability to wear his glasses while masked, while barely gasping for breath between tears. You didn't even have the decency to offer a sympathetic comment, as Mr. O'Day did. As a human being, this disgusts me. As a mother, it sickens me. Given your latest announcement, Mr. Haskell, you're simply a lame duck occupying space until the next election while maintaining a voice in current policies, which is deplorable. Mr. Fazio and Mr. O'Day, you published an op-ed today regarding your stance on mask mandates, but this is simply not enough. Each of you have been photographed at events, maskless, which clearly shows that the state of emergency is over. I am sick and tired of our children being sacrificial lambs for your political aspirations and for King Lamont's desire to obtain $50 million in federal funding contingent on maintaining local COVID protocols. Why does an oligarchy of elected officials determine how we live our lives? Our county is 90+% fully vaccinated. That public health threatens local businesses and houses of worship with fines and closures for non-compliance is at best government overreach and at worst tyranny. How best to force people into obedience through terror tactics, fear-mongering, and threats. The government may not decide what we wear on our faces, how we worship, and how we run our businesses. Remember, you work for us. We elected you, and removal from office is but an election away. Each of us can make decisions for our children. We don't need elected officials for that. We call on you to end this mask mandate now. Your policies are futile power plays that residents neither deserve nor want. Accept that the policy experiment never worked and change course now. Masking must be a parental choice, not a government requirement. Stand up and fight for my 6-year-old whose brain development suffers because of his inability to see properly. For my 4-year-old whose skin is destroyed by mask wearing, so red and raw I can't even put salve on him without her crying. And my 2-year-old who, if you do not speak up, will be forced to slap on what might as well be duct tape onto her mouth in a short time. I can assure you of this. If you remain silent, the damage that they have suffered will be on your hands. And I and others will not allow the decisions to go unanswered, legally or otherwise.
We only have a brief period of time. I appreciate the passion, but we can be disagreeable, okay? But be respectful. So, listen, we all agreed to be here and listen, okay? Let's be respectful. We can be respectful, please. Thank you. I make $30,000 as a state representative, and I lose probably 10 times that by doing this job. Thank you very much.
Okay. In school, wearing a mask is not the solution to stopping COVID. Making friends is already hard enough in middle school, so why make it harder for us? Also, wearing a mask all day affects your senses: smell, hearing, and sight. If you can't see the person you're talking to or recognize their face expression, it's basically having an anonymous chat. It is also really hard to learn skills and concepts when you can't see the mouth or hear what is being taught to you. What also makes learning hard is sitting in a freezing cold classroom because windows are open. Adults make rules for kids to follow. These rules are supposed to protect us and keep us safe. I want you to know I don't feel protected. I don't feel safe. I feel bullied into wearing something that is doing more harm than good. End the mask mandates now, please.
Hi, my name is Brett Wilderman. I live in New Canaan. We're going to save a couple seconds here because mine's going to be short. But, you know, I've been against mask mandates from early on in this whole thing. But the argument made more sense to me when there wasn't a vaccine, when we didn't know more about it, when the virus was more dangerous than it is today. The fact that people can get vaccines if they want to, they can wear N95 masks if they want to, the numbers on the death rates and the severity of this illness is way down. The argument doesn't hold any water for me at this moment. We've got to go back to a normal situation where the parents have the decision. The one fact that you brought up, or point that you brought up about other children feeling uncomfortable that my kid may not be wearing a mask really holds no water as far as government cram down of a mandate. That shouldn't impact a law to make my kids wear a mask based upon the feelings of another kid. That's not a legitimate cause. Another point I'd like to bring up is you talk about the experts. I'm the experts of my kid. There's not a person in this room other than my wife who cares more about my kids and thinks more about my kids and know more about what's best for them. And it's not just their safety, it's a whole life. It's a whole life experience that I take time to take in consideration. I've learned that information. I should be the one empowered to make that decision. Please turn the authority back to make this decision back to the parents. We've gone along with this long enough. I'm not going to stand by anymore. I want the decision to make my own choice. I respect everybody else to make their own choice. If they would like to wear an N95 mask in school, I totally respect that, and they should. But don't make that choice for me. Please take all the feelings in here into consideration as you go back to Hartford.
I'm reading a letter from someone that's unable to be here tonight because they're out of town. It is my duty as an attorney to argue both sides of an argument. When presented with the current day predicament, I see only one side: free our children and give families the right to choose. You have the responsibility of protecting our most prized possessions. Please help us give our children back their love of school. It is lost and heartbreaking to watch as powerless parents. Sadly, this has become a political decision. As a New Yorker and a Democrat, raised by Democrats, both practicing physicians who do not believe in masking children any longer either, and married to a Democrat, we are all appalled at our political party. The Democrats are digging down their heels to win this game. If you win and mask mandates are extended, our children lose. The excuse that children are resilient is mistaking resilience for compliance and complacency. They have no choice. We got vaccinated, boosted, even got COVID. We did our part to protect our society. Our children are being punished to appease the government. Our children are suffering because Democrats don't want to lose this argument. COVID is not killing us, yet we send our children out with their beautiful faces covered because our government sees it fit. The fact that it doesn't turn your stomach and you say, masks don't bother my kids, is horrific. The masks should bother your children. It is not natural. I have a 7-year-old with chronic headaches because she can't breathe properly wearing the masks all day. My 3 children used to love school. Now they are barely learning. They can't see their teachers' mouths, pronounce words, or hear the nuances in their muffled voices, or feel the teacher's emotions because they cannot see expressions. Anxiety and stress are high. Kids have fallen so far behind, who knows if they will ever make up for this lost time. We are no longer in harm's way. This is not an emergency. The numbers from the start of COVID do not hold up today. For those of us who have followed the rules, leave us to make our own decisions. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Owen Benison. I am a freshman at Greenwich High School. And first I'd like to start by saying to everyone here that I think as a group we all need to relax. I think that yelling and screaming about this issue isn't doing anything productive, and it's not getting us anywhere. We need to look at these issues logically and see what's best for us as kids, or for you as parents for your kids. I think there is some merit in acknowledging the fact that these masks do have a purpose. If I'm wearing this mask and I sneeze, it will block the particles from going out. That's not to say it's 100% effective, but it may have a purpose. However, that purpose doesn't necessitate forcing students to wear them. Students should get that choice, or parents should be able to make that choice for their children. The argument that, as some others said before, the argument that students may be ostracized by other students isn't really something that matters. If a student feels that they are being disenfranchised by the fact that they are not wearing a mask, they can simply put one on. Or they can simply choose not to associate with those who attack them for not wearing a mask, or those who do wear masks can either choose to stop wearing a mask, or if they are not medically able to, they can find new friends who are just better people. Like, the masks aren't something that at this point is necessary. They are something that is being used to hold us back. And I don't think it's done with a malicious intent, as many do here. I think it's done with a lot of misconceptions. I'd also like to speak in support of our governor, because compared to a lot of other governors in the United States, he's been pretty laid back with his rules, and he has not overstepped as much as many others have with their emergency powers. So while the man may have done things that I don't agree with, I think we owe him a great deal of respect for not stepping as far as some other governors have and done. And also I'd like to say, for those of you here who are attacking our representatives, they're doing the best that they can. And the fact that you guys are just insulting them for what is essentially no good reason is just appalling. They're there trying to restore your freedoms, and you guys are attacking them. What good does that do? Thank you.
My name is Lou Kozar. I'm a New Canaan resident for the past 15 years, and I'm here as a representative of my son, who is competing tonight masked at an FCAC championship for indoor track. His name is Jacob Kozar, and I'm reading statements that he's prepared. My name is Jacob Kozar. I'm a sophomore at New Canaan High School. I'd like to make my voice heard and officially be entered into the record of the discussion of the requirement of students and staff to wear masks while in school buildings. The mask issue should not be turned into a political statement, and we should be doing it because we care about the health of others. This isn't about government control, but it is about keeping our communities safe. A minor inconvenience does not mean we should put at-risk people in a deadly situation. I have seen no data that mental health has any correlation to the wearing of masks in school. Yes, the amount of teen suicides and mental health issues have gone up over time, but this rise began years before COVID became a pandemic. Children are dealing with many forms of stress from online school, and low-income families are struggling to get internet to their children to attend online school. Also, dealing with loss of loved ones is a factor, but masks don't seem to have a direct correlation. I think the teachers have been very lenient when it comes to masks, and we should respect that they are doing the best to protect us. The more we respect the rules and work together, the faster we can get out of the current COVID crisis and return to normal life without masks. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for this forum tonight, and I'm happy to follow two very well-spoken high school students. My name is Cole Schubert. I'm a senior at New Canaan High School here, and also I'm on the track team like Jacob was, but he's much better than me. He's at FCX right now. I love hearing all of the laughter here because we are a town at the end of this, like all of our representatives have mentioned. They're all fighting for our interests, and so are the Board of Ed members over here, as well as Dr. Lutzy. And so first, I want to give a massive thank you for everything that you guys have done. This is uncharted waters, as Dr. Lutzy, you keep saying, and I can't imagine that it's easy with so many differing opinions and so many people that know their kids so well, and so many kids that have such different needs. I've seen it in school, but I think that it's really important to remain civil and positive. And I think that's something that I've been pretty disappointed to see here tonight, is the booing or the cheering and interruptions have been really disappointing. I'm 17 and I'm going to be voting next year, and part of the next generation that's coming up into our country. And it's pretty inspirational when people are able to work together, and it really turns me off from getting engaged in political or democratic processes when people aren't. So I just want to say thank you for everything that you guys do, and please keep an open mind when looking at this, polling students, teachers especially. Thank you so much.
Hi, Danielle Mcgrattan. I just first want to say, I think you're seeing a lot of this anger because parents have dealt with this for 2 years now, and we have reached a point where we have complied, and our children have complied, and we're finally saying enough. We have had enough. So I want to just take a second, because I've heard tonight a lot of talk about immunocompromised children. My sister-in-law wanted to write a letter, as she has an immunocompromised child. Like many other children, my 2 children are both suffering daily and have been for the last 2 years. What makes my situation unique is I have a 3-year-old daughter that has spent the majority of her life in the hospital. This past October, she was blessed to have received an intestinal transplant. She is thriving, but her immune system is extremely suppressed, and she's at great risk if she's to become ill. As their mother, I am ferociously against mask mandates and demand parental control. I know with absolute certainty that masks cause both of my children way more harm than good, not only including my daughter, but especially my daughter, who also has feeding and speech delays due to her condition. In fact, given the recent data released on the effectiveness of masking, which we can't ignore, I can't seem to find any good that comes out of wearing masks. We have never asked the public to protect the immunocompromised before, and I certainly do not want that now. My daughter will always face the risk of severe illness, and we are certainly not masking our children forever. Last month, my immunosuppressed daughter contracted COVID. I did research and read what I could. Despite what the mainstream media portrays, I came across research that determined that the response to COVID is often no worse in immunocompromised children than it is in healthy children. And to many people's surprise, she was completely asymptomatic. She was fine. Please remember, we are asking for the choice to put our children in masks and not unnecessarily forcing them to do so. We are asking for parental control. If anyone feels the need to wear a mask, they should also feel free to do so. We need you to stand up for our children. We must stop asking children to bear the burden for others, including my immunocompromised daughter. I implore you to please free our children. Let them live again. Restore our rights as parents to make decisions for our own children.
Hi. First off, thank you for showing up tonight and listening to us all. My name is Andrea Wilderman. I have a 7th and a 9th grader, and I currently teach pre-K, and today I'm actually speaking up for your niece that's 5 years old, for the 3 and 5-year-olds. Out of an abundance of common sense, after 2 years, it's time to stop forcing our children to wear masks, especially those in their formative years. The masks provide minimal protection if worn correctly, and I assure you they're not being worn correctly by 3 to 5-year-olds. Out of the necessity to breathe, and they have little faces. They're not able to wear them. And every time that I need to remind them to put their mask over their nose, to adjust it, I'm reminded of the message that I'm actually giving them, which is be afraid. The most critical period in a child's development and learning is birth to 5 years old. Everything in life, from behavioral patterns to principles and moral choices, depend on this period. It's crucial to their health, well-being, and overall trajectory of their lives. These preschoolers have spent half of their lives in masks and up to 5 hours a day. As a teacher, I cannot be as effective as I need to be with my face covered, especially when it comes to speech. I need to show them how to make sounds, and I can't do that. Children have the right to develop to the maximum ability. Children have the right to develop to the maximum of their abilities, which cannot be accomplished. It can't be with masks on their face and a mask on my face. I urge you to give us the choice for our children, our community, and Mr. Haskell, I promise you, your niece that's 5 years old is missing out on a lot more besides her teacher's smiles. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Yolanda Juraj. We have received several reports of teachers reaching out, voicing their support on mass choice, but they are too scared to come out publicly. So that should signal to everyone here tonight that something is wrong. With that being said, I am reading on behalf of a group of teachers that would like to remain anonymous. Teaching in a mask all day is not easy, and it feels like you can't breathe after an hour of speaking. How comfortable can we, educators, feel doing our jobs when we are put into a situation like this? We are teaching to eyes. We have no idea what our students look like or how they are feeling under that mask. It's already hard enough to teach our students, but now with another barrier, the mask, it makes teaching impossible. We don't know how our voice is coming across behind the mask. We speak louder and are exhausted at the end of our day. We are having a hard time communicating in a classroom. All of our students' voices are muffled. We can't understand them, and they can't understand us. Education is not happening. We are doing an injustice to our children. We need parental control. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Laura Holden for Mass Choice and also specifically for parental choice or control. My son, Kirk, and soon-to-be second son are fourth-generation New Canaanites. I've given birth in a mask during this pandemic, and I wore a mask, so hopefully my children won't have to. We had a pro-mask speaker earlier tonight, the hedge fund gentleman, say that the only study available about the impact on mask wearing is that it is detrimental to children ages 3 to 5 related to emotional development. Yes, that is why I'm up here. I will not sacrifice that. That should not be on the table for sacrifice. I'm a very pregnant mom, and I implore you not to ask my son to pay the price for federal funding for the state of Connecticut for $53 million. Masking toddlers is political bureaucracy at its worst.
So I'm reading on behalf of Devin Swozy, who is a woman in town of New Canaan. She is a mother, an aunt, a godmother, a teacher, supervisor, but most importantly, she is a mental health professional who has studied and specialized in developmental psychology for the last 17 years. It is fair to say that some children are fine wearing a mask, but many struggle. When masks became mandatory for children attending school, instinctually, I felt this was a dangerous path for social emotional development of our children and at odds with what experts were telling us to do. It certainly did not help that I also knew, with certainty, that therapeutically speaking, wearing masks would be completely contrary to effective therapeutic treatment with our youth. As a therapist, trying to help children during this unprecedented time of change and surmounting unknowns, I chose to trust my judgment and made educated decisions regarding how to best treat my clients, most of whom are children, adolescents, and young adults. I was careful, of course, and I only saw clients who truly needed in-person treatment and I met with them outside, but I must admit I never wore a mask, and I never required any child, teen, or young adult to wear one during our meetings unless they wanted to, which none of them did. Can you imagine sitting in a therapy session describing a traumatic experience such as being sexually assaulted with half of your face covered and half of your therapist's face covered? Really, try to imagine how that might feel for the victim of a brutal assault. Can you imagine experiencing a panic attack whilst describing fears of your father drinking and describing horrible details of these drunken episodes? Can you imagine a therapist trying to assess a teenager who is reporting suicidal thoughts only by seeing their eyes? All of these situations I found myself in frequently throughout this pandemic, and I have no regrets over my choice to not require masks. I have also no regrets of hugging the child who described these painful details of her assaults as her face flooded with tears. The reality is, kids need comfort through our faces, through our physical touch, and through comforting words. Masks have made this virtually impossible. My own children, who gained validation and assurances from high fives and hugs and smiles from their teachers, have now experienced depression and anxiety since the mask mandates. The mental health implications of wearing masks for more hours of the day, the ongoing changes in expectations, and the stress and trauma that our youth have experienced over the last 2+ years is only getting worse. I see children who have never attended school day where they've seen their teachers' faces entirely. I work with children who started wearing masks in kindergarten and who are now in 2nd grade and have no memory of school where they couldn't see anyone's faces. Countless children have reported to me that they think their teachers don't like them or have no connection to their teachers. There's so much more here. Clients of mine who have attempted to begin their college journey have struggled tremendously. Many have returned home because of mental health or taken a much different path. To put this perspective for you of those not in my field, pre-pandemic calls from people seeking treatment were a few times a week. The diagnosis of OCD applied to 1/4 of my clientele is now nearly 3/4 of my clientele, and I have never had a client come as close to a successful suicide attempt as I have during this pandemic. I have never seen so many younger children with social skills deficits and social anxiety. Kids spend their days in school trying to focus on school, but those with ADHD or anxiety struggle to keep on their masks. Teachers and other students are singling out students, reminding them to pull up their masks, a reasonable request, but one that is isolating and ostracizing. These are all.
I know you're reading.
I'm sorry.
There's people. It's 8:40.
Okay.
So you can submit. Listen, I remind everybody.
She's emailing all of us.
Have her email. They can post this. You can all post this and email us on this.
Can I just say one more line? But it is not enough. Kids are supposed to be protected by us, kept safe by us, and when I say that, I mean socially and emotionally.
So please email us. It's 8:40. We're going to be here for another 10 minutes, but please be cognizant. We're going to try and get through everybody. Thank you.
My name is Drew Mcgrattan. I have 2 kids in the New Canaan Public Schools. And I, too, I guess I agree with the gentleman from high school. I am appalled by some of the stuff I've heard. I guess one thing is the facts. I mean, the pandemic is over? When did that come out? You know, I think it's very much real. The United States has some of the highest death rates of large developed countries in the world, 2,000 a day. 130,000 hospitalizations, numbers that before the pandemic would have been shocking and not on the table, not on. So I feel like it's easy after 2 years of this to normalize those numbers, and I'm not saying that Omicron hasn't turned out to be milder in most cases. The data still isn't totally in. Connecticut numbers may be down, but we know people get on planes all the time and mix and match other parts of the world. So I think the main point here is that we are a bunch of armchair scientists in here. None of us are qualified to say whether this is over, whether masking is effective, you know, whether the rate of spread is low enough. I think we're going to get there. I don't think we're there, but what do I know? Unless somebody's an epidemiologist in here, I don't think anybody else does either. So I encourage you all to follow the science. We do have a system in place, a structure in place, people highly more qualified than any of us to make these kinds of calls. And maybe we won't get there this week, maybe it'll be 3 months, maybe it'll 6 months, but if we don't prevent the spread, there will be more variants, and they could be worse than what we have. There's no logic to say that it's just going to get better and better, more milder and more milder. It won't necessarily. We don't know that. So anyway, that's what I would encourage. Because quite frankly, the stuff I've heard tonight, I don't want any of you people making decisions for my kids either. Thank you.
Hey, look, if everybody sticks to a minute, we can get through. If everybody sticks to a minute, we can get through. Otherwise, I don't think we're going to get through. Thank you.
All right. My name's Ryan Sullivan. I spoke at the Board of Ed meeting on Monday, and I've written letters to all of you. Tonight, I'm reading a letter on behalf of a teacher who would like to stay anonymous because they're too scared to come out publicly in their support of mass choice. This teacher reached out to parents who spoke and offered a perspective on the issue and signed the letter a proud NCPS employee. So to whom it may concern, as a parent, it is very disturbing to know that my own young children have not had a normal school year, one free of masks and social distancing, at half capacity and full of quarantines. As an NCPS employee, it is very disturbing to see how students are affected firsthand. I've seen students of all grades, K through 12, reprimanded in hallways for improper mask wearing. I've seen students become upset and embarrassed. One particular hallway incident that stands out took place with a second grader. It is sad to me that its school experience at every grade has been overshadowed by our administration and our government's response to COVID. I've seen firsthand students in school berated by staff about improper mask wearing and have even been removed from school or suspended. I cannot imagine a high school student worrying about my record to being tarnished by failing to wear a mask properly. There is no one policing the adults. The complete government overreach has infiltrated our schools and impacting our students daily. I'd like to point out that all the staff get to enjoy mask breaks in their offices. I see teachers regularly without their masks and away from students. I'd like to remind everyone of the high school staff party in December. It was an indoor setting with optional outdoor space and no one was wearing a mask, all inside mingling together. If these staff members are so worried about teaching inside the building and are clinging to masks as a security blanket, I cannot make sense of a celebratory holiday party with no masks in sight. We need to return to normalcy, we need to unmask our children, and we need to stop making this political. As a staff member, it feels like we are if they feel they are at risk, despite vaccine availability, they are free to wear a mask. One-way masking has proven to be effective. I find this personally so incredibly distracting. Can we get back to prioritizing New Canaan students and give them the best education we possibly can? Our children and our students are relying on us, the adults and the educators, to be their voice and advocate. We return to common sense, led by an example set up for their success in the future. Until then, we're showing them to hide behind fear, accept the status quo, that it's good enough, and that we are perhaps the most selfish generation of all. Thank you.
My name is Matthew Campbell. I live here in New Canaan. The fact that we're here tonight again to defend our children against these emergency measures is an indictment on each of you, from our superintendent to the governor. After listening to condescending admonitions to follow the science for the last 2 years, the science is overwhelmingly on the parent's side. As Mr. Haskell alluded, there's only one explanation. It's obvious. We need to follow the money. If we follow the money, we'll see that the governor's wife makes money on the PCR test administered in Connecticut. And also, many of these representatives are complicit in that conflict of interest. If we follow the money, we'll see that Mr. Haskell and Ms. Dathan are using our children to cover their own incompetence in managing the state's budget. If we follow the money, we'll see that our teachers' union is nothing more than an appendage of the Democratic Party. Following the money is the only explanation. That's why they go to such great lengths to discredit any loving parents that voices their indignation. In his email, Dr. Lutze dismissed parents' grievances, including a JAMA pediatric study on COVID measures and teen anxiety, as misinformation. That was August 2021, peer-reviewed. You can look it up. 203 Action, a group closely affiliated with Mr. Haskell and Ms. Dathan, claimed that parents speaking at BOE meetings are fringe alt-right. Apparently, I'm the face of white supremacy in New Canaan. This isn't about local control. We saw what local control gets us when Dr. Lutze co-signed a letter to the governor asking to extend the mandate the very night he was misleading parents. His contempt for us is obvious. He clearly has political aspirations he values over the well-being of our children. This is about parental control. It is the strong families in this town that contribute to the success of our schools and inflate the resumes of our school administrators. Our children are not wards of the state. They are not wards of the town. They are our God-given responsibility. That's something I will never outsource. Masked or unmasked, the choice is the parents'.
Good evening. I thank you for all your hard work and really appreciate all that you have done for us.
My name is Ann Kozar, and I live here in New Canaan for 14 years. My son has attended all of the schools in our system. I'm a registered nurse, and I've been a registered nurse for 33 years. I have worked in the operating room for hours at a time and never had any issue with wearing a mask, nor have the nurses, doctors, and anesthesiologists that I worked with. I have seen firsthand the impacts of COVID infection and death from it. If all of the people that are against masks could see what the results of COVID can create, it may make them think differently. I wrote this just before I came up, so forgive me. Masks are only to prevent illness and death, not to create any social issues. So we keep focusing on that, but the priority is health and health prevention of issues. It is temporary for this reason. Temporary. It's not forever. As a registered nurse, please realize how important it is to prevent illness and carry it to others, and the long-term effects for people with comorbidities. As the high school students mentioned, I am appalled at how adults are treating you for all the work you've done, and it's embarrassing to see our public act this way. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you.
Go ahead, Laura.
Okay. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for most of you responding to my letters as well. My name is Laura Barker. I am a New Canaan mom. I am also a local restaurant owner who believes in mask choice. I applaud Kevin Moynihan and others who made the decision not to reinstitute the mask mandates when other towns did. For me, for your safety and follow the science are just meaningless words at this point, meant to scare people into compliance. Make no mistake, fear is a virus, and government, big tech, and social media are promoting it. To the elected officials here tonight, I'd like to ask you, when does it end? When do we take back control? Almost all have had the virus or been vaccinated. When are we going to start talking about learning to live with this virus, a virus that is nothing more than a cold at this point? When are we going to protect only those most vulnerable, our elderly, or those with serious health concerns? When are we going to realize that the long-term repercussions of masking children will far outweigh their risk from getting the virus? Student learning and their mental health should be our highest priority. Parents have spoken very eloquently tonight about the trauma their kids face every day wearing masks at school. I believe that people are going to be talking about the fallout from COVID mandates for hundreds of years to come. What side of history do all of us want to be on? Mask choice or mask tyranny? After 2 years of this, it's time to provide people with a choice to decide for themselves. The decision regarding masks in school must be determined by our local Board of Education. In order for New Canaan to have local control of this decision, you must vote to not extend Governor Lamont's emergency powers on February 9th. I can't support you otherwise. Also know that the silent majority is waking up, and we are saying enough. And one more thing. Let me remind everyone here that the freedom we surrender today are the freedoms our grandchildren will never know existed.
If everybody goes a minute, we can get through, but if you don't, we're not going to be able to get through everybody.
Giacomo Landi. I'm speaking with a mask, not because I'm a big fan of masks, but just because it's sort of interesting that we ask our teachers and our students to wear masks all day, but we take them off to speak in public settings. So I think we really got to put ourselves in their shoes. Let's just talk a little bit about the difference in the data in the state of Connecticut. If you look at vaccination rate, including boosters, in New Canaan, we're at about 60% of the population. In the big cities, you're like 20% of the population. This is just state data from today. Why do we have the same policies all over the state? It's crazy. So if you're going to follow the science and follow the data, there's a huge difference to what's going on in one town versus going on in another town. And why are we taking off our masks to speak? Why are you taking off your mask to speak? Or why is basically everybody else doing it? Because it's a lot more comfortable. You can understand people. You can relate to them. You dial down this community pressure. This is also a COVID outcome. And this is totally voluntary, that we've created this by pulling people apart. So you have to get people back together. And I am sure that the efficacy of this mask does not outweigh all the social destruction that goes along with it. So drop the mask mandates, work on the science of keeping the COVID and all the other things under control, and deal with towns that have really big issues. Think of these towns that never opened their schools like we did. They're still suffering. It's the same ones with the low vax rates. We're lucky here. Focus on these people. They need the help. They needed it before COVID, they need it now, and they need it in the future. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Dr. Elaine Morganelli, and I was at the Board of Ed meeting on Monday, and I'm here again today to just voice my concern about what is going on in our world. Tensions are high, but understand, people are sad because they're fighting for their babies. These are our children, so understand where the emotion comes from. These years have been tough on all of us. When I watched that video the other night of our kids, part of me wanted to say, yes, we're doing a great job, they're in school. But the other part of me was sad to see that 2 years later, they're still in these measures. Now, there's a lot of questions about data and masks, and I could spend all night talking to you about that and my opinions on that. You know, the CDC on their website not too long ago just made a statement regarding the PCR test and said, as of December 31st, it shouldn't be used because it was not doing a good job in differentiating between flu and COVID. So are our numbers correct? No. And that's my point. We are making these mandates that don't make sense. I don't think I have to convince any of you up there that the masks are not working. To answer your question about the N95, those are specifically if we as physicians are going to be dealing with a patient with an aerosol type illness. They are not meant to be worn all day long, or you will suffer from oxygen deprivation. My son had a KN95 on not too long ago one day for several minutes, and it had to have his oxygen tested. It was 93%. Our levels should run 97, 98, 99, 100. And when I saw the kids playing gym in masks, I wanted to cry. That shouldn't be the case. But yet the NBA, are those players wearing masks while they play? So how can we do this to our children? But it doesn't stand for everything else. Representative Dalton, you said before we have to unroll this slowly. But did you not see on those videos that our kids are eating lunch in a cafeteria packed with each other? They're unrolled. And if you guys are truly worried about our kids getting COVID, I hate to tell you this, but they already got it at lunch. Which is why I question the rules that we're following from the DPH and the CDC. I'm done. They don't make sense. But I'm going to just ask you one thing. Please do what's right. Do it from the heart, not the politics, not the funding, not the money. Do it because it's the right thing to do for our children.
Good. Thank you, sir.
My name is Yanni Jordanopoulos. It is imperative that we make a change and allow New Canaan and the rest of Connecticut to make their own decisions on account of mask mandates. Governor Lamont is requesting an extent of emergency powers, which at this point seems to be more of a scheme for control and profit. We have gone from banding together in order to flatten the curve to now having our governor attempt to swiftly vote in 11 executive orders into law at once, including a statewide school mask mandate. This has gone on long enough. What we can do right now is combat Lamont's executive orders and attempts to attain power by speaking up. I urge you, the people of New Canaan, to stop remaining silent and speak up for your rights. Do it for your children, your neighbor, your peers. Do it for your beautiful state, and do it for you. And I'm going to give you all one history lesson in case you all forgot. Those who sacrifice their liberty for safety deserve neither.
All right. Thank you for providing me this opportunity. My name is James Bonner, and I'm the father of 2 students in the New Canaan public school system. I have been a physician and a surgeon for over 24 years, and I'm saddened to see the direction our town and our country has taken. I realize there's a lot of emotion behind everything COVID, but it is time that we start uniting to support one another rather than further separate us. We all breathe the same air. We all want the same thing. We want a place where our children can grow happy, free, and most importantly, without fear. We are asking to make mask wearing an individual choice. Removing all masks is unrealistic and will never work. I say that because no matter what happens, whether you get 1 or 2 vaccines, 3, 4, 5 boosters, or Biden comes on TV tomorrow and says COVID is over, you will never, ever feel safe. They have broken us with fear, and the only way out of this is for you, as an individual, to stand up and be strong. If you are banking on a cure to give you strength to take off your mask, just remember, AIDS and HIV came out in the 80s, and we still, 40 years later, don't have a cure for it. What's happening now is, in my opinion, weakening us through division and keeping us suppressed with fear-mongering. The international data clearly shows masks don't work. The NBA, NFL, NHL play mask-free in stadiums, which are pro-choice, but our kids are forced to play masked. If the science doesn't make sense, we don't just go with it. Use your God-given logic and common sense. If you can smell cologne, perfume, or even flatulence through your mask, then you can also inhale COVID. If COVID is so deadly, then when you see an old dirty mask on the floor, you should run. COVID is everywhere. That's what they want you to believe. Because a hospital may have COVID patients, it doesn't mean they are hospitalized as a result of COVID. To all you pro-maskers and anti-maskers, we need to unite and support one another. We need to be sympathetic to our educators and those who rely on masks for comfort. But most importantly, we need to teach our kids how to be strong and not afraid, how to be confident and not create insecurities, how to be brave and stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. To our representatives, I say to you, we are educated individuals who are now watching what is happening. We are paying very close attention to the decisions you are making and how the science or common sense supports those decisions. In the months and years to come, all of you will be held accountable for the decisions you are making today. We know the data. All the information is out there for us to see. From somebody who's in the medical field, I personally find it very difficult to believe an extension is warranted. Give up the greed for money and start helping humanity.
Thank you, Marianne. Please try to keep it to a minute.
Okay. My name is Marianne Mercogliano. I live in New Canaan for 20 years. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I think there's something I can add. I'm a teacher here in Connecticut. I'm not scared. I'm here and teachers are. But I was a teacher in New York City for 20 years, and when de Blasio came up with the executive order that teachers had to upload a vaccine card or lose their job, I couldn't do it. Americans, you know, they don't live this way, and I didn't want to have any part of that. But we're here tonight to speak about executive orders. I'll stick with masks. Once again, you know, I'm at odds with my fellow teachers about this issue. You know, it's as if almost like some teachers, some administrators, some superintendents, some politicians, it's almost like they want to keep the pandemic going. I don't know why. Maybe they want to work remote. We did like that last year. I mean, you know, maybe it's about funding. I don't know, but it's not about putting the kids first. Because I'm in a room with a bunch of kids all day long and they're all in masks, I have like maybe a different perspective. And when I'm, you know, it's very sad because when I'm teaching kids and they're talking to each other, not only can I not hear what they're saying, and I'm like, speak up, and it's like, you can see them get frustrated. I'm like, just take your mask off, you know, just take it down. When they speak in groups, when they speak with partners, when they try to speak with me, you can't hear them. Another thing, when you're a teacher, you look at your kids' faces, like, to try to see, like, are they catching on? Are they getting this? I'm talking about, like, a concept we haven't learned. I mean, I can read their eyes a little bit, but, it's usually their whole facial expression that you have to look at and read, and it's just ridiculous. The masks are absolutely ridiculous. My kids are in high school here in New Canaan. I don't have little kids here, but if I did, I'd be pretty upset. I mean, this is so damaging to kids. I mean, I have students who, they pull their mask down like this, and I don't even recognize them. They're like, hey, Miss M, I happen to see them outside, and I'm like, who are you? It's just, I'm sorry if I'm talking real fast, but to sit there and actually think that this is somehow not damaging kids is just, it's a lie, and I have to wonder what you're getting out of it, some people. That's all.
Hi, I'm Matt Wexler. I have 2 children in New Canaan Public Schools. Over the last few weeks, it has become clear that this debate is not about public safety, children's welfare, or even the school's fancy HVAC system. Plenty of evidence and facts countering the prevailing narrative have been presented, and I believe that no amount of science, logic, or tragic first-person stories seem to have any impact. So what is this really about? This is about the state of Connecticut fixing its disastrous finances by keeping these mandates in place. This is about powerful entities, including the governor's wife, putting themselves above the rights of our kids. This is about the lives of our children being handed over to unelected bureaucrats, while some people hide behind them, abdicating their duty. We have an obligation to our children to protect them, to support them, and to teach them the values that we as a society hold dear: fortitude, compassion, individualism, and free will, to ensure the next generation is better off than we are, and we're failing them. We teach our children about the bravery at Gettysburg, Normandy, and Valley Forge, and then tell them to cower behind cloth scraps. We teach our children about Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, that one has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws, while we cause untold scars now and in the future. What would the Reverend King say about that? There is something more contagious and insidious than COVID, something that spreads throughout our people. An infection of cowardice, self-interest, greed, and fear. That is the true pandemic our children face, and that is a pandemic that is promoted. Only parents have the right to decide what is best for the health of their children, for only parents bear the lasting consequences of these choices and actions, not teachers, not administrators, not the state. We will not continue to sell our children's present and future for a quick buck. Parents must be given the choice to unmask their kids. Thank you.
Hi, I wanted to talk about the COVID-19 vaccine. It has been proven that it does not stop the spread or transmission of COVID. And I think the fact that it's being mandated is absolutely ridiculous. With the religious exemption gone, we don't have the right to say no now for our children. I have a 4-year-old child with autism. I will not vaccinate her. That is my choice. And you guys need to understand, us mama bears are coming. Y'all better get ready, because it's my child, my choice. And Mr. Haskell, please tell your party that our children aren't for sale. And I'm very disappointed in you from the whole vote. This is just wrong. Why are you going to mandate a vaccine? Because if my child gets hurt from that vaccine, nobody's liable for it. Yeah, nobody's liable. When there's risk and death is listed as a possible side effect, there needs to be choice. It is my child. And education is not a bargaining chip for compliance. There's that too. My child will be getting an education because she has autism and an IEP. I will sue whoever I have to sue, but get ready.
Thank you. If we can do 1 minute, then we can all hear from us too. So, and I know, so go ahead.
My name is Lauren Vernalia. I'm not from New Canaan. Sorry, guys. But I've been all over this state. I've been on the news countless times. I've been up at the Capitol. I've been to every Board of Ed meeting in my town. I've been to city council meetings. I mean, you name it, saying the same thing that, frankly, 90% of this auditorium is saying. The masks on children It's child abuse. I'm sorry. I have 2 kids. I have one who is 9. I have one who is 12, going to be 13. She started middle school virtual last year, lost half of her 5th grade year, and now here we are, and my kids are miserable in school, miserable in these masks. And I'm sorry, but let's just be real here. If you look at those papers about who's got mask mandates, who's not, blue state, red state, sorry, it's true, okay? I wish it wasn't. I don't know why it's a partisan issue, but it is. And so I'd really like to know why the germs are different in the red states than the blue states. And so I'll just say 1 or 2 more sentences and then I'm done. Bottom line is, absolutely. Haskell, I'm sorry, you're like 12. I'm sorry. And sorry.
No, listen, please. They've stayed here now. We've all stayed here past. Please move it along.
So the point is,
respectful, not.
If you have children, you have a say around the kids. If you don't, you don't.
Let's please try and keep it to a minute. We've already well over time. Please go ahead.
Hi, Lucy Dathan. I'm addressing you tonight. I'm a resident of Norwalk, sorry, New Canaan. I'm urging you to plan and organize an in-person community forum so our community voices can be heard. On Tuesday night, I attended a BOE meeting virtually. I waited 3.5 hours to speak. When I finally got to speak, I was cut off after 15 seconds the second I mentioned the word masks. Then I spoke about how our kids are unhappy and that this is detrimental to their learning and mental health. Then I was muted and told I couldn't speak anymore because it didn't fit the topic of their mid-year progress report. If you ask me, mask wearing in our children has everything to do with progress and they aren't progressing. According to our BOE that night, only 68% of multilingual learners make it to graduation. That is a scary number. It is imperative that you don't leave your Norwalk students behind. If New Canaan can have an in-person forum like this in a large auditorium with people spaced out and masked, so can Norwalk. I refuse to be muted by the click of a button. A community forum like this is an excellent way to engage the community and get our voices heard, as so evident here tonight. I applaud all of you.
So we got the last 2 here. If you could please keep it to a minute, then you're going to hear from all of us. Then we'll play a video. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dietrich Moore. I have 3 children in New Canaan, and the mental health impact of mask mandates have been devastating for them. We can't let the, quote, cure be worse than the disease, and I want to implore you all to work to restore parental control and end the mask mandates. 15 days to slow the spread, and here we are. Many people feel that they've been consistently lied to by the supposed experts over the past 2 years and are justifiably angry. Many feel that these mandates are not about science, but about exercising political power and making money. Appeals for civility should not be used as a cudgel to stifle free speech. I attended the Board of Ed meeting on Monday night, and I was concerned at the defensiveness, lack of urgency to correct course, and unwillingness to grapple with the anger of residents who feel that they've been poorly represented. If you feel afraid, you should feel free to wear a mask, but history will judge us harshly if we don't correct course.
Thank you, she deferred. Thank you for all being here. Appreciate your time and your attention and awareness of these issues. My question is, who is going to be brave enough to initiate an ethics investigation against our governor for misproprietariness in certain contracts that the state has been granted, as well as some of these deals that have just gone through, like that Gene DX deal? I'm curious about why we're not seeking and demanding an ethics investigation. I don't think that that's so much to demand, because otherwise I'm going to do it, and I'm a lawyer, and I'm really tired of working for free to do your guys' jobs. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susan Zabahansky. I am the founder of Parents' Choice Connecticut, now Families for Freedom. I don't even know what to say anymore. We have been all over the state. I've listened to parents cry on my shoulders. I've listened to frustration. One thing I do want to say is this process, for those who call it embarrassing, this is the democratic process that we're supposed to have in the United States of America. Zooming for 2 years, sitting on our couches and supposedly listening to constituents is not the way we should hold our government. And when you guys vote on the rules next week, we demand in person. You can have that option for people who want to Zoom. It's sad when those we elect don't represent the very people who voted for them. There's such a distrust in government on the federal, state, and local level. Did you know that less than 1/4 of Americans trust their elected officials to do what's right? The reason is because too often we've caught our elected leaders lying to us, ignoring our needs, and denying our freedoms. Americans think that the answer to create real and lasting change is with a new presidency or a governor recall. But the truth is that our local elected supervisors carry the most influence and impact on our daily life, well-being, and freedoms. In order to protect us from big government, our Constitution says that our local supervisors are supposed to stand up for us. But when they fail to do so, and when they fail to uphold the Constitution and stand up for our basic freedoms, it's our job to hold them accountable. I have seen change happen all over the state. We saw that with the local elections, and it's going to continue to happen. And I hope that you guys will stand up and do what's right and give parents back their choice. We demand it back. I hate to hear people pleading and begging for it back. We demand it back. Thank you.
All right. I think it's the last speaker. Go ahead.
Yep, thank you. Bruce Colthop, parents of kids in school here. Thank you for showing up. Sweden dropped all mandates whatsoever. Denmark, UK. I mean, this is crazy, guys. Come on, okay? You've heard from 90% of the people here what their thoughts are. The other 10% are suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. And if you don't know what that is, look it up, okay? Stockholm Syndrome, okay? And it's even higher than 90%, okay? Because if you're looking at from the Facebook, you have to log into Facebook. Who picked that to review this if you're not in person? Who decided that Facebook? You got to go on Facebook to watch this if you're at home. That's crazy. That's like Dominion all over again, right? So you've heard. Obviously, it's the last. Who's going to vote? I mean, how can you not vote to remove the mandates here? Can you say?
We are.
I want
as soon
a
as you're
voice.
done, yeah, we're going to give our
have
position. Yep. Go ahead. Thank you. I think we're done. All right, go ahead. Be quick. I think we're done after that.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kara Philbin, a Greenwich resident. Ryan Fazio, please have a town hall in Greenwich, Connecticut for your constituents. Thank you.
All right. So we got one more. Be quick, please. The last one. And then we're all going to give 2 minutes, starting with Will.
No, you're good. Great, thanks. 2 kids in, I don't know if folks could hear. Matt Dowd, New Canaan. Thank you for hosting this. Appreciate it. Appreciate your efforts at making this civil. I am hopeful, given some of the high schoolers who have stood up and implored, like this gentleman, civility. I've been called a coward tonight. I've been said I suffer from Stockholm Syndrome. My patriotism has been questioned, despite the fact that I served our country for 10 years, all because I believe keeping my kids in school is important. And the fact that we've been able to do that in New Canaan, when many people I know personally around the country have not been able to keep their kids in school. That's the reason all of you have, or not all of you, excuse me, many of you have questioned that. I appreciate that you all are doing your research. I'm doing mine too. Like the fact that there have been 1 million excess deaths in the United States. Like that the COVID death rate in Connecticut right now is the second highest it's been since March, April of 2020.
Hold on. All right.
The point is, can we just disagree civilly and have a debate rather than attacking each other personally?
All right. Thank you. We're done now. Thank you very much, everybody. Now, hold on. We agreed to the start. I said we're going to start off 2 minutes. I went first. I'm going to go last. It's going to go Will, Ryan, Lucy, and then I. Please hold your applause to the end.
Well, this has been a really interesting 12th birthday. Thank you all for being here. No, in all seriousness, I've listened carefully tonight. I've taken pages and pages of notes. I've learned from all of you. I've been moved by a lot of you. I was saddened and a little dismayed by comparisons to the civil rights movement, but I also heard from really educated medical professionals, passionate parents, and most of all, I just want to say thank you to the students. You were a shining light tonight. Those who I agreed with or disagreed with, you. I'm sorry, ma'am. We can chat afterwards, but anyways, I thought the students were exceptional. Okay, so let me just wrap up by saying it's clear many people came here tonight maybe ready to disagree, but I actually don't know that we disagree on all that much. If you listen to what each of us said tonight, we're ready to put districts in the driver's seat. We've got a few conditions, sure. We want to make sure that the DPH provides guidance so that administrators can get this right. We want to provide a little bit of time, but certainly unmasking if they so choose by the end of the month, but we want to give them time to get this right. And I am once again going to reject this dichotomy that has been raised tonight, that it's either unmask the kids or, hang on, it's either unmask the kids or it's house those who are homeless and feed those who are hungry. We can and we should be determined to do both. I'll be voting to make sure that, hey, why come if you're not going to listen? I'll be voting to make sure that districts are put in the driver's seat, but I think it should be done deliberately, and I think it should be done with guidance. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for coming and voicing your opinions. I certainly heard you. I want to make 11 very quick observations that I think are supported by the preponderance of the scientific evidence and which inform my opinion on this issue and which will inform my votes this month in the Senate. First, the Constitution of our state gives legislative powers to the legislative branch, and the legislative branch cannot surrender those powers to the executive branch or anyone else by a mere resolution. Second, this is a horrible disease, but vaccines, boosters, and therapeutics are highly effective at reducing severe infection, and now they're available to anyone at their own discretion for free. Third, cloth masks, according to the CDC now, do not significantly reduce transmission of COVID, although it appears N95 masks do, and anyone who wants should be able to wear them, whether in school or outside of school, in order to protect themselves if they see fit. Fourth, schools now have have always had a lower transmission rate than the community at large, with or without masks, according to data. Emily Oyster at Brown University has been very good about publishing this sort of data. Fifth, minors are not meaningfully at risk from severe infection or mortality. Their mortality rates for children are higher from influenza, drowning, traffic fatalities, suicide, and homicide. Sixth, we do not have a statewide mask mandate outside of schools. The only large classes of people in our state who are currently masked are service workers and children, and I think that's a problem. Seventh, universal masking of children inhibits learning, socialization, happiness, especially for young children. Eighth, learning and socialization of children has atrophied since COVID, while depression, obesity, and other problems have skyrocketed. Ninth, parents can make wise decisions about how to protect their children better than the state government can, and we need to empower them to do so. 10th, if these emergency policies and powers do not end now, when will they? And 11th, how should a society be judged that long sacrifices the interests of children for the well-being and peace of mind of adults?
All right.
I appreciate everyone's opinion tonight, whether they agreed with me or not. Thank you for coming, and have a good night.
And please, we can be respectful. Let's let Lucy and I get through our 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Clearly a very passionate audience here, and I'm really appreciated that everyone came out. But I'm saddened. Over 260 people were sitting on the Zoom waiting for their opportunities to have their voices heard. Some who emailed me who said, I personally don't feel safe coming over to Saxe this evening. You know what? Everyone has their opinion, and I'd like everyone's voices to be heard. I gave everybody the opinion, and I'd like to let you hear what I have to say as well. So I'm sad about that. And I've heard from many people on both sides of this. But everyone, the recurring thing that I'm hearing the most from my constituents is we need to be thoughtful and methodical. We need to listen to the experts who know our students in the classroom every single day. I spoke to teachers. I spoke to Dr. Pierce, who heads up the HHS here in town. And there was a resounding of we need to be thoughtful, we need to be methodical, we need to make sure that any decisions we make are in the best interests of our children. So I do really hope that parents do have that opportunity to listen to each other. I also wanted to kind of put something right about some of the comments about the money, the $53 million. We had a Human Services meeting on Monday. Yes, we meet in the off sessions all year long, and as a Vice Chair of Appropriations, I meet several times, sometimes it can be several times a week on the off session, all for my $28,000 that I earn as my job. I asked OLR, which is the Nonpartisan Office of Legislative Research, and I said, there are states that are getting money for these SNAP benefits, and just be clear that I think we have to also be fair to the families in this state who are receiving up to $150 every month as additional SNAP benefits as part of this emergency. That's an extra trip to the grocery store, that's heating bills, that's other sort of assistance that's helping them get through this. I'd love for you to hear what I have to say in regards to what OLR, the Nonpartisan Research, said. I said, what can we do if this emergency goes away? What can we do to protect these families? Because obviously we need to make sure that everybody is protected. And there are options. And so that's something that I'm working on as Vice Chair of Appropriations, as a member of Human Services, as a chairman of a MAPOC subcommittee, that we ensure that we are looking after everyone in our state. I just wanted to conclude that I really appreciate all the emails. If I haven't responded to your email, it's not that I haven't read it, and it was lovely to put faces and names together tonight, because I took down notes as well. And I appreciate you taking the time. It is very important. But we do have to remember that, and I didn't start by saying I represent Norwalk and New Canaan, and I'm hearing from my constituents that they want their kids to be safe in school as well. So thank you so much for your participation this evening, and I hope you have a good rest of your evening.
So a couple things. So thank you. Now, look, I believe in parent choice. I agreed with everything Ryan said. That's why we wrote the op-ed together, okay? So you know where I stand. I look in the mirror, and I'm embarrassed, I am, that I haven't been able to convince others to vote against the extension of the executive orders. I am ashamed. Somebody said it, you should be ashamed. We're the Constitution state, and we're not following the Constitution. But I got to come back. We can disagree without being disagreeable. I don't agree with Lucy on this issue about mask choice, but I respect her opinion. And I respect all of your opinions. The Lord gave me 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Listen more, speak less. And I'm trying to do that. I also have done a lot of homework. I've done a lot of homework. I've got a lot of papers, and I agree. Don't shoot the guy in the foxhole next to you, please, okay? Ready, aim, fire. The person who served our country for 10 years, we let you speak twice. I disagree with you, but I respect you immensely, and I appreciate your service. Masks have done nothing to stop this virus. This cloth mask that I put on, out of respect, okay, does nothing. But I do it out of respect for the law. I'm a lawyer, and I respect the law. And it's an executive order. I get it. Believe me, I've been a lawyer for 30 years. Today I spoke with the governor. The governor called me up about an hour and a half before this meeting. I think we agree more than we disagree. There's a nuance here, okay? Ryan and I want parent choice, okay? There's some effort to make the executive order expire and have DPH put out not requirements, but advisory opinion. I don't want that, but that is something maybe we can compromise on. A broad base parameters by which we can shoot for. New Canaan is one of the highest vaccinated towns in the country, certainly in the state. We have done a good job. We should not be treated the same as Bridgeport and New Haven. We've done a better job of getting vaccinated and following social distancing and doing the right thing. I am embarrassed that I can go to town hall without a mask, but my child has to wear a mask. I get it. I'm opposed to it. I encourage you, please reach out to, particularly, no offense, Ryan and Will, the Senate is more difficult right now than the House. The House is coming together more closely over the next week, I think, than the Senate is. So I'm going to give you a little roadmap, okay? After talking to the governor, talking to the speaker, I was with the speaker for almost a half hour yesterday. I encourage you to send your emails, your testimony to the senators that represent you and the governor. They're listening because they brought listen to me, the measuring stick has moved, okay? We are being heard. You are being heard. So I'm going to stick around. We're going to do a video. It's late. There's a 3-minute video that somebody wanted to put forth. We're going to allow them to do that. You can stick for it or not, but I want to thank my colleagues for coming here and for whatever say whatever you want to say. They do deserve your respect, even if you disagree with them. And I do disagree with them, but I do it respectfully. Thank you. Now if we can, somebody wanted to start the video, please do it now because it's been a long time, and I got to admit, I've been drinking a lot of water, and I need a break. So the comment was to make it a well. Look, hybrid actually. I'm in person, but I also do hear the argument that people like the Zoom element because they can attend. But I do want the House open. Who's playing the video? Because get it done now because not everybody's going to stick around. So we've heard you. We're trying to do public hearings throughout the state. We're trying to do it throughout the state.
I have no idea if I can organize one in Norwalk in the next couple of days.
All right, do you have the video? Yeah. All right. We're going to stick around to answer questions after this video. But down front. Oh, I'm sorry. This was created specifically by Dr. Harvey Risch. He's at Yale. He's an epidemiologist. The people who are giving this video asked this to be made for this event.
Spent the major part of our professional activities on fluid research. I'm here today
There are two questions to understand them. First, masking can have two possible effects: to protect the wearer from infecting other people, and to protect other people from an infected wearer, what's called source control. Mandating mask wearing only deals with source control. There's no reason to override how individuals choose to protect themselves. But the issue of source control means that there are actually only two research studies that have studied it on the efficacy of source control by mask wearing. There's a study of Marines in a residential Marine barracks, and masking didn't prevent them, many of them, from getting infected. There's also a study of villages of adults in Bangladesh, where in the original analysis, mask wearing reduced COVID infections by about 11%, but in another analysis showed that infections were about the same in the mask and unmasked villages. So what we know about mask wearing for source control is that there's either no benefit or there is a benefit, but it's very slight. And we don't know whether this even applies to Omicron now. Well, even if there were a slight benefit reducing infection transmission, it's nowhere near enough to matter in the school or institutional setting, especially compared to all of the adverse effects that masking causes children, and especially since Omicron in children is essentially asymptomatic or very mild, and adult school staff could still choose to mask themselves if they wanted to. The second question is more general, that people seem to be comfortable making decisions based on plausibility, but less so based on scientific evidence. We routinely consider plausibility in how we understand the world, but plausibility itself is not science. So it appears to us that if we put a filter over people's noses and mouths, whatever particles and droplets exhale will be caught by the filter. This is in fact true for droplets, which are bigger in the spaces between the strands of the filter, but it's not true for particles that are much smaller than spaces. Unfortunately for us, coronavirus is much smaller than the spaces, so it gets out. When people cough or sneeze, the virus particles attached to water droplets do get caught in the filter. But these are symptomatic people who should be staying home while they're sick in the first place. Viruses just in exhaled air aren't stopped by the filter. So my take as an epidemiologist who wants to know what happens when you measure people and not what happens with theories, is that the studies show that masks are not nearly beneficial enough for COVID source control. And that's why I think they're a burden on students without having an appreciable benefit. All right, thank you, everybody. We'll stick around, answer some questions, but I appreciate everybody coming out, and take care. Everybody wants to talk to this feckless Republican. I'm standing right here.